Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, another episode of Between Two Beards. The 49ers have kicked off their OTAs this week. I see that we are up against some tough competition for this time slot. Luke Walsh wondering who's going to come on first at 7 o'clock. Will it be Schuh and Randon McMahon or Barrows and Kruger? Well, hopefully it was Schuh and Randon coming in first. Welcome to the program. I am your host, Rob Schuh. That is my co-host, Randon McMahon. Randon, how are you doing this fine evening of OTAs, good sir?
I'm doing well. Just, putting that time in towards the end of the month. Car sales is a end of the month push. And then they say, hey, you didn't do anything last month. It's a new month. It's time to push again. It's a consistent push. It's like a personal trainer who says, give me one more set, and then they tell you to give me one more set. Like that's what car sales is like.
Man, I was doing, speaking of sets, I was doing some barbell presses on the bench and went for that last rep where it was like, I got this, and didn't tell my trainer who was spotting me that I was going for something that I probably didn't have. Halfway up, it was like, nope, don't got this. Brought one down, a 50-pound barbell right onto my the spot for a dead leg on my hamstring. That was a slight bit of pain that resulted from that, but worth it.
No gain.
No pain, no gain indeed. Well, obviously, OTAs are going on right now, and the theme for this show is going to be 3 things to watch going into OTAs. What are those key elements to watch going in? And 3 is just not enough. So we call it 3 things to watch, but we're going to give you 6 things to watch because Randon is going to give you his top 3, which admittedly are some pretty good ones. And I had to kind of stretch to find my 3. And then I'm going to give you my 3. You're going to have 6 total things to watch. We're going to talk about some of these rule changes that have come into the NFL. We're going to touch on a little bit of billionaire greed. At least that's going to be my take on one of these rule changes. And we're going to have some fun, as always. So if you are here in the chat, do us that favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification so you know when we are going live. But let's jump into this thing straight off the bat. I hit the wrong banner. So let's talk about 3 things to watch. Randon, what is your first watchable moment during these OTAs?
Obviously, it's the QB. I mean, I think that's everybody's thing. And maybe not for, I'm watching for different reasons. Like all this slowing down Trey's mechanics to microscopic levels that mean nothing. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for slow motion passes. I'm not here for any of those kind of things. And talking to or listening to other podcasts that with actual QB people on there, saying that like when you're at this age, it's almost impossible to fully change your mechanics. It's just how you throw naturally. And there's nothing wrong with having an elongated motion that Lance has. Patrick Mahomes has an elongated motion, right? So it's just, finding up and fine tuning and tweaking little small things that can make you better. And he reportedly has done that every single summer, doing small tweaks. Lance just needs to throw the football. And that's my first thing about the QB situation is who's taking first team reps right now. Everybody's been saying Darnold's going to be starting week 1. Well, first team reps so far have been going to Lance. Second team reps have been going to Darnold. And so, that's what I'm watching there. Second is how, Purdy's supposed to be starting to throw here pretty soon. What does that mean? Is it like warm-ups? Is it like an 8-yard warm-up throw where he's throwing a mini football like this? Is he throwing 20-yard passes? Is he going to be on the field with everyone else? I'm just interested to see what part of rehab is rehab, where he is in that situation. Because all we've seen so far is him doing a bunch of waving at 49er events, and that's not throwing the football.
But it's very vigorous. It's very vigorous waving. Let's just be clear about that. It shows positive signs.
Veracity hand waving. If that's part of rehab, then go for it. Purdy is ahead of schedule. So those are the things I'm watching about in the QB situation room. Take that for what you will. Rob, what do you think about that, the QB situation going on, and where are you? Do you like how I'm approaching it, or are you approaching it a different way?
I think it's prudent the way in which you're observing this situation, and it is obviously the thing to watch in OTAs. If we're ranking excitement for 49er faithful, the question marks that surround this team, you feel like this roster is a very complete one, a lot of competition at various spots. quarterback isn't usually the type of position you generally want competition at. Competition is always good, but you want a clearly defined starter. You want to know who that guy is. And finding one out throughout this process is critical because 49er faithful don't feel like that's a clearly defined question. Just to bring in a couple of folks from the chat. Hello to Raphael5629er saying good evening to you and I, sneakerheads, and everybody. Vitamin saying, hey, one show a week doesn't cut it. That is a fact. During the offseason, it will get low, but we will get it back up. No question about it. Talking about the way in which I'm observing the quarterback situation, the first thing that I've got to take into account is Kyle Shanahan's language around it. I know people have said, hey, when you listen to John Lynch and what Kyle Shanahan have said, it really hasn't changed all that much over the offseason. It has basically indicated that Brock Purdy is the clear favorite, that Trey is still, well respected within the building and is going to get an opportunity to prove himself, and that they feel good about Sam Darnold coming in as the third. I really did feel like Kyle's language more recently at that event when he was on stage getting interviewed, it was just that much more concrete. He talked about the fact that Purdy had shown everything he needed to show to be quarterback one on the field last season. So I go into this just assuming that with regard to quarterback one, it's Purdy's job. And we do have to pay attention to the timeline. You mentioned that, right? It's, hey, he's ahead of the timeline by a hair at this moment. That's got to stay there because some of the key indicators are coming up. Throwing a towel is much different than throwing a football. So you got to make sure that he gets into that and stays comfortable. And then the battle between 2 and 3 is what I will be most fascinated with. And I'm right there with you, that it's all about how the reps get split. It's what they do with those reps during preseason games. But I have to think that the order is fairly clear right now. Purdy is number 1 unless something else happens. Lance is number 2 unless something else happens. And Darnold is number 3. And I think the Niners do go into the season with 3 quarterbacks on the roster.
Well, we'll talk about the QB rule later on, but I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think this is just Shanahan's way of saying, I don't know what's going on. I mean, he knows more than we do, but I'm just saying, like, you don't know how long the rehab is going to take, right? Every single person in the history of time that's had an injury, and they ask, hey, how's this person's injury going? Well, he's on schedule. He's ahead of schedule. That's just normal speak, right? I mean, it happened last year with J.K. Dobbins, and he missed more games than what he thought, right? I mean, he was supposed to be ready week 1. I drafted him in fantasy football, and he didn't play week 1. So it happens all the time, and that's just coach speak. Hey, he looks like he's on task, but I mean, throwing a towel and reportedly being able to throw a football next week isn't playing in the NFL. It is not. And so I think Lance has every single chance to overtake that job, and do that during camp. Because what if he has a setback? Purdy has a setback. What if it's not? And people got to realize Brock Purdy had the best offensive stats of any quarterback last season when he played. There could be positive regression. I don't know if you remember this guy, Rob, but Jimmy Garoppolo had a pretty good 5 games, and everybody wanted it. And he got a sweet $125 million and didn't work out the way that everybody else did, right?
No.
So just like 4 games isn't enough to tell me everything I need to know about Trey Lance, neither is 8 games for Brock Purdy to anoint him the emperor of the 49ers, or Joe Montana, or whoever you want to coin him as. He had a great year. This is not 2022 anymore. The season's completely different. Lance should have every opportunity. They invested 3 first-round picks in him. Worst case scenario, like I've been saying for months, Purdy goes on the pup, goes 4 games or whatever. It's him and Darnold for the first 4 games. If Lance isn't cutting it, you can always go back. The last 2 seasons we started slow. I just think this is crazy. And then I think the overreactions to slow motion passes, the keeping stats with no pads,
right? On 7-on-7,
on 7-on-7, like that kind of shit. It's uninteresting to me, because it's like they're supposed to be working on things.
Yeah,
right. They're supposed to be working on things. It's not like, hey, we're trying to go down and beat this defense. No, it's hey, we're working on curls. We're working on getting out the ball quick. We're working on deep throws. We're working on this. And it's like that stuff has zero interest to me.
So I agree with you on some parts of that and then disagree in others, right? I think you're spot on that the overanalyzation of slow motion passes by Twitter experts is comical at best. And yet it is information, right? It is new stuff coming out. So I fall somewhere in the middle there of agreeing with you that it's laughable, the level to which we analyze it, but not feeling that it's useless information as well. I think there's some value to it, and you have to take it with a grain of salt. And I agree that the order could shift. I just disagree in how that would take place. I think the best case scenario is the one that you lay out. I'm actually shying away from that happening now, wherein Brock Purdy goes on PUP, misses the first 4 weeks. That opens a window. If that happens, I think it changes the dialogue, because Trey absolutely could go on a regular season tear, and Shanahan, I think, could be convinced. It
should change the dialogue, because
totally
you invested 3 first-round picks. Purdy is not Mahomes. Purdy is not Josh Allen. Purdy is not any of these elite physically gifted people. He is never going to be that way. Can he run an effective offense? Great. Yes, he can. He can. He showed could do it last year, and the Niners were one of the top offenses in the league last year. But you drafted Lance to be Mahomes. Like Mahomes, if you look at last year, the Chiefs, they had the youngest roster per snap count than any other team in the NFL. They traded away multiple all-pro wide receiver. They didn't really have anybody at running back. They said, F you to their number one corner. Go ahead and sign with the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't know if you know this, they won the Super Bowl because they had an elite quarterback.
Yes.
And so that's the goal here. The goal isn't to be fair to whoever is going on. The goal is to find the best quarterback for the next decade. And if that's Brock Purdy, then great. If it's Trey Lance, he should be given that opportunity. The last year's 8 games shouldn't give Brock Purdy some sort of anointment that he automatically gets the job before training camp starts. It's like, there's no way for me, because you're setting yourself up for failure, a possibility of failure, because I mean, otherwise we would have already had our king and Jimmy Garoppolo, and look what happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I just don't want to, like, all these rushes to back some guy up, or like, I'm leaning towards Lance because I want to see what the kid can do. But
absolutely,
if the Brock Purdy's our guy, do you not believe every Sunday I was cheering on Brock Purdy? And
of course,
like, come on, man. Like, I guess it's just this whole thing is frustrating for me, because like I'll tweet out something like in pro Lance, and then I get like 50 people like, well, what about this? What about this?
Well, but see, that's the craziness to me.
Drives me nuts.
Yeah, that combativeness that we have of needing to take a side is what's crazy to me, because I understand using what you saw Purdy do in the regular season as justification for saying he will be our quarterback 1 unless something else changes. And I think that preseason games won't be enough evidence for Lance to sway the tide. I still think he can prove that he's, worth that 3rd round pick, that the Niners should continue to invest in him. But unless he gets a crack at a regular season game, I just don't know that he's going to be able to convince Kyle Shanahan that he deserves that QB1 spot. It still sets up fine for getting a chance during the season. Certainly injuries happen. And I'm with you. I still believe in Trey Lance, and I want an open competition. And I think going into it, you just have to acknowledge there is a clear-cut 1 and 2. That seems to be the way it is going in. We're going to continue this dialogue. I'm going to bring in a couple of pieces from the chat as well. We got Ellis10 coming in. Rob Schuh, is it just me, or did it feel like the 49ers offense got a little better after Purdy took over for Jimmy G? Then Purdy got slightly better each week. He definitely showed progression. The offense was most efficient under Purdy. You could also talk about the addition of CMC. Could Lance have done the same? It's a fair question. Kevin coming in from Glasgow. Good evening, gents. Chat room and viewers around the world. So quarterback. Lance was 12 of 17. Darnold was 11 of 15. But Hurt Allen came in and hit 7 of 7. The QB podium said a lot. No rush Purdy. Yes.
Then Allen should be getting first team snaps if we're going based on snaps.
Well, but I think that's the thing is, like, you could see Purdy, you could see Lance or Darnold lighting it up in these preseason snaps. And to your point of like, hey, these preseason statistics, these OTA statistics don't mean jack. I think the same is kind of true throughout the preseason. So that's my fear, is that maybe Lance is that guy. Will he get the chance to prove it? Like, let me ask that of you. Knowing what you know of Kyle Shanahan, knowing sort of how he feels about players earning things, Do you think if Lance doesn't get a chance to start week 1, say Purdy is back for week 1, can Lance do enough in preseason alone to earn the QB1 role in your mind?
Yeah, I think he can. I mean, you're talking about the timeline. If everything seems to go correct for Purdy, would be week 1 where he's 100%.
Right.
Like, and everybody's like, oh, well, he didn't need any practice last year. Well, I mean, like last year was last year again. This is a completely different season, and he's coming off.
Teams will be ready for him this year.
He's coming off of Tommy John, right? Like this is not like a small surgery, and like only several football players have ever gotten it, and none of them came back and had successful careers. I mean, Jake Delhomme was probably the most successful career after that. I mean, he was a journeyman amongst the NFL, but like to say that like he's gonna be back 100% and like we should anoint him like that's just I think it's asinine, to be honest with you. I think it's like let's just take this a week at a time. Like if Purdy's not ready, it's not the end of the world that Lance starts.
Oh,
newsflash for everybody out there.
It's phenomenal, the quarterback room that we've put together.
If Lance beats out Purdy, knowing what Purdy did last year, that's better for the Niners.
Yes.
Because then you got a better quarterback, and Shanahan thinks he has a better quarterback than what he saw for 8 games last year.
Right.
Which means we are a better team.
If you can get Lance to make the same reads and the same throws that Purdy was making, Lance is a better quarterback because he has more physical gifts, right? That's the only question mark is, will he be able to operate at that same level of success and efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at like, I understand like Purdy was effective last season, but there's going to be times in games where you need to make certain throws.
Yes.
And Brock Purdy can't make those throws. He can't drive a 30-yard out across the field. He can't do it. It's just not in his repertoire. Can he do other things well? Yeah, he can. But it's like it's all fun and games until you can't do something, right?
Yeah, he certainly doesn't do it as well. That's a fact. If
you're a corner with 4.6 speed, yeah, you don't have to play. You don't have to have 4.3 speed the entire game, right? But if the game's on the line and you have to follow DK Metcalf down the sideline and you're one-on-one, then yeah, you have to pull that out of your bag. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. There's plenty of times last season where Hufanga was the best player on the field. There's plenty of times where he got burnt because he's not a center fielder like a lot of these other DBs. Everybody has physical limitations, and that's perfectly okay. Brock Purdy can still be an effective quarterback. He can still be a top 5 quarterback in the league with physical limitations. But I'm saying if Trey Lance beats him out, that means this offense is going to be better than it was last season because he has that higher ceiling than Purdy will ever have.
I agree with that statement. We are still not in lockstep around who is currently QB1 or the odds to remain QB1, but we agree on a lot. I had to put Bullpup33, who's a sneakerhead here on the channel, up because I'm here for the puns. He says, Rob, don't throw the towel on any of these quarterbacks. Hey, any towel references with regard to quarterbacks, I'm here for it. Ellis10 is in lockstep with your statement here, Randon. And I think it's just a factual statement in this hypothetical. He says, yes, he is on point. If Trey or Sam beat out Purdy, the 49ers situation is better than last season. By definition, Purdy played at a certain level. If he is beaten out by one of the other two, then absolutely that is a positive thing for the 49ers. You know, I'm putting the shout out, the greatest 49 coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel, just to say hello to the two beards. Much appreciated. And let's get to the super chat. Brett J, Bro Montana in the house. What's up, fellas? Bro Montana in the house. Keep up the good work, fellas. Niners. Yes, sir. Appreciate the love. Appreciate that. All right. Certainly the quarterback situation is an exciting one. It had to be number one on the list of things to watch. Randon, you nailed it with your side of the argument. I like that we're on opposing sides there. Always love a little disagreement. Let's talk about
Tell me what you got, buddy. Tell me what you got.
Mine's a letdown after that, right? The quarterback one steals a little bit of the thunder because there is excitement around the quarterback. But this one to me is big. The tight end room in its totality. The first question coming in is, will the 49ers dedicate 3 or 4 spots? Throughout the Shanahan tenure, they have done both. More recently, you've been looking at a situation where you had 4 individuals. You could make the argument that was because there wasn't a clearly defined number 2, that they hadn't invested in the position, and therefore they just needed bodies at the spot. But I look at this, and the 49ers obviously drafted 2 tight ends. They drafted a 3rd rounder and a 7th rounder. And as of right now, I'm hearing more positive things about our 7th rounder and wondering if that is going to be a lock to make the roster. So if the 49ers go to pick those 2 draft picks to keep them on the roster, I think that bumps up the number of tight ends that the 49ers keep to 4, because you cannot have Kittle followed by 2 rookies. That just doesn't work for your blocking schematics. You can't count on a rookie to be as good of a blocker as a seasoned vet. So obviously Kittle is a lock at the top there. I think both of the draft picks right now, barring injury or major setbacks throughout, are going to make the roster as well. That leaves Ross Dwelley, Charlie Warner, or Troy Fumagalli as a possible 4th tight end. I leave Troy Fumagalli on there for honorable mention because I have worked with Troy's brother before at Tesla. Good guy. Ross, shout out. But I think Ross Dwelley and Charlie Warner are the more likely to choose between. Another shout out here for someone on Twitter, Jason Hurley, who runs at 49ers Cap on Twitter. Phenomenal information. Anything cap related, anything about cap dollars is the way to go. Points out that Ross Dwelley has $700,000 guaranteed on his 1-year deal. That's a large percentage of money, but the Niners have shown a propensity for just flushing money like that down the toilet. They will give that guarantee to win the player over, but if the younger player does in fact outshine them, they've not been shy about flushing $400,000, $500,000 of guaranteed money down the toilet. So I look at the other players, Charlie Warner, I think he's the better blocker. So to me, this is fascinating because do both of the rookies make it? And then is it 4 tight ends total? Are we looking at Ross Dwelley getting cut? Are we looking at Charlie Warner getting cut? I have it with Kittle, the 2 rookies, and Charlie Warner because of his blocking prowess.
I think Chris Latu is a lock to make the roster regardless of how his camp goes. Just draft capital usually kind of dictates that. So being a 3rd round pick, I just don't really see him getting cut. The amount of guaranteed money with Dwelley, I think that also, with how cap crunch the Niners are, I think they'd probably go there. A 7th round pick, I mean, in the deepest tight end draft in a long time, a 7th round pick really doesn't move the scary he's going to get picked up by another team needle for me. So I could see them putting Braden Willis on the practice squad.
Sneaking him onto the practice squad.
Yeah, just for that reason. I do like the fact that his moxie, man, for lack of a better word. Hey, every team besides the Niners are going to regret that they didn't take me.
Yes.
I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to be working as hard as I can. Yada, 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 which, hey, have that chip, man. Because a lot of people carry that chip for their entire 20-something year career, right?
Absolutely.
And, you look at receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown knows every single receiver drafted ahead of him and knows exactly what stat line they had. You see him, if he has a late game, he knows every single stat line from every single receiver taken ahead of him before he goes I'm just going to have to outdo that.
Dude, I'm here for that level of pettiness. I love it.
So if Willis is that kind of guy, then yeah, maybe he can make the lock. And then I think Warner's out. You're looking at, from all accounts and people who do scout tight ends, Latu's a willing blocker. I think Braden Willis will have to be. And I think Dwelley is going to need to be a receiving threat that knows the offense, just because if Kittle does go down, who's going to be catching passes that you feel effective on? And you're going to know the assignments. Obviously, the rookie should have enough prowess to learn the playbook by the beginning of the season, but it's a tough playbook. And if you make a mistake, you get quarterbacks hurt, as you in the playoffs. So I think Dwelley's going to make it there just for being a veteran. And so I could see Braden Willis getting put on the practice squad. But if he shows out well in camp, I don't think they show any allegiances to Charlie Warner and they move on from him.
Yeah, I agree that it is possible Braden Willis ends up on the practice squad. I just keep hearing good things about him and the reports being that he fits the mold of what the 49ers use those extra tight ends for. That one's going to be an interesting one to watch because of the fact there aren't many unsettled positions on this team. There are 10 or less. This roster is basically a lock from top to bottom as far as who's making the 53 man. This is one of those rooms that has a little bit of wiggle to it, Ian Sharp coming in to say, hey, Warner might be on the outer, not an offensive threat. That to me comes down to the last choice. If the two rookies do make it and you're filling the fourth tight end, he's not technically the fourth on the depth chart. He just is your fourth tight end on the team. So you have the two rookies, obviously, Kittle in there. If you're choosing between Dwelley and Warner, it's an easy call. Do you want a blocker or do you want a pass catcher, right? It's not like their skill sets overlap. And so I think because they're keeping the two rookies, they'll want a blocker. In your hypothetical, wherein they're only keeping the third round pick, then to me, that is going to be a situation where you probably can keep both Dwelley and Warner. Certainly that'd be the case. I think Latu makes the team as well. I tend to think that they both do, Latu and Willis, and Warner as the fourth. All right, let's go back to your second thing to watch here. Talking edge.
Yeah, so we've been talking position groups. This is just more of a person in general. I think this team, this defense, underachieved with the pass rush, at least last season. And so I think you're looking at a thing that where you need your second round pick to be a second round pick, just like we needed and wanted more out of Aaron Banks. We need and want more out of Drake Jackson. It's never good enough for us Niner fans, and he should get used to that. So, but the big thing for him is if you remember correctly, in college, he's had multiple different schemes. He was asked to play at 240, then back up to 270 or vice versa. So he shifted weight quite a bit. He went to the combine and ran, and then in his pro day, he was like 10 pounds heavier. So all he did was cut weight to run a faster 40, and then went back up to his normal weight later on. So, a lot of players do that, and that's why most of the time they only weigh in at one place and they run at one place, so they have the best of both worlds. So, I think you're looking at a situation where he needs to take this seriously about his body. You can't be opposite of Nick Bosa and not realize what is demanded of you in the NFL.
Right.
And so now you have millions of dollars. You have every opportunity. You look at the players' grades for the facilities for the Niners was one of the tops in the league. So there's opportunity, there's availability, and people are willing to give secrets out. Tight end U is a thing for all tight ends, no matter what team you're on, to go and learn how to be a better tight end. Right. Offensive linemen get together, corners get together, wide receivers. Debo Samuel and DeAndre Hopkins were both working out, learning from each other this offseason. There's no reason that Drake Jackson couldn't find, whether Nick Bosa wants to or not, because they seem pretty seclusive. There's tons of other edge rushers in the league where he could go and find somebody to work out with, get a personal trainer to where he needs to be. I guarantee you the Niners told him exactly where they want him to weigh in and how much body fat he needs to be at, and he needs to hit that mark. Shanahan is not afraid to tell you if you're not good enough at the moment. No. And so, and he's brutally honest about certain things. But you look at the team last year, I believe he had 3 sacks before he was pretty much benched for the rest of the season. I think the second highest in sack totals for the entire year was 6. So, he was well on his way to be the second leader in sacks. But if you can't get on the field and you can't do the small things right, Shanahan isn't going to play you.
Right.
And you got to take your job seriously in the NFL. That's what I'm looking for. Did he come in shape? Is he good? Is he taking the first team reps? Is he an animal out there? I know they're not wearing pads, but is he intense out there? Is he ready to go? And last year, if you remember correctly, first practice, everybody was saying Aaron Banks looks way better shape. First practice. I have yet to hear anything about Drake Jackson, about his weight, his in shape. Maybe you have, and I haven't heard it yet. But
I have. But I've heard some rumblings.
I'm interested to see. So
yeah, a lot of folks have played up the idea that he looks heavier, he looks more stout. I think the Niners have talked to that. But I'm with you that you've got to see that happen on the field, because to me, the question mark with all the players that were allowed to walk in free agency is just that, around what we saw from Drake Jackson last year. Obviously flashed early, had those 3 sacks. And then, Shanahan, Lynch talk about, well, he hit a bit of that rookie wall, didn't quite have it last season, down the stretch, didn't have it. And you wonder if he's going to be able to make that leap this year. It just seems like counting on him making that leap. The 49ers seem quite confident in the fact that they didn't make any real splash signings in my book. Clelin Ferrell, I love that as a reclamation project. But if we're talking about someone who's going to be starting, playing all 3 downs, that's setting the edge, I don't know that I feel phenomenal about Clelin Ferrell stepping in there. I feel better imagining Drake Jackson taking that second year step. Other players behind that, I mean, I looked at Beal as a speed guy, but then in reading up on him, one of the things the 49ers liked most about him was his ability to set the edge. So maybe you've got some other players in there, but I think that the Niners are very much counting on Drake Jackson to be that 4th starter. It seems as if he's penciled in there. I like what I'm hearing about the increased weight, his ability to play that. But again, until I see that actually happen on the field, I do worry that this is one of those situations where we're counting on progression as opposed to going out and adding depth there. I do wonder if the 49ers will rush out to sign one of those veterans who's not interested in being in camp, right? There are at least 3 or 4 edges still available that are quality edges, elevated in years, and therefore don't need much training camp, much preparation, but could come in and contribute 6, 7 sacks throughout the season if we sign them. I wonder if the Niners would rush out to sign somebody if Drake looks like he's struggling in preseason.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what their vision is for him. Right? Like he has his draft profile, he had incredible bend. So that leads more to be an outside speed rusher. I mean, he didn't have a blazing 40, but are they going to put him at like 265 and like have him try to be that speed guy? Now he's not elite with the 40 and he's not elite off the ball, but he has that good bend to go around the outside. Or, the Niners have typically like their bigger DNs because they play the wide 9 and they want them to set the edge. So he's going to play more like 275 and take some of that pass rush ability away. I wonder what they envision for him because it seems like they have a lot of guys on the roster that are like the big defensive end D tackle hybrids.
Right.
And they don't really have a lot of the speed guys, which I think Beal would fall into that aspect too for me. So that's kind of puzzling that you said that. And then what is that? Bryant is another speed guy. It really doesn't seem like they have a lot of them. And Drake Jackson seems to be more of an edge bender based on his best skill set, which was his bend. I'm just interested to see how they want to use him and what body type they feel is best for his game.
I'm just fascinated by that entire unit to see what the most likely 10 guys on the 53 man are going to be for defensive line. Bryant is one of those that perplexes me, right? Didn't put it all together in Detroit and yet has a fair amount of guaranteed money in his contract. It seems like the Niners are expecting to get something out of that. But when someone can't contribute, in Detroit and falls out there and was a low priority for them as a free agent, I have my doubts. So that is absolutely one to keep an eye on. Kevin coming in with the super chat. Much appreciated, Kevin. One of our sneakerheads here on the channel. Top quality channel, deserves rewards. Tip of the cap to you, sir. It's time that defines us, and we appreciate both of yours. Hit that like button. I agree with Rando Commando on the tight end. He is favoring the stashing of Braden Willis on the practice squad. I would take that as a win. I'm just worried we're going to see too much from him. All right, let's get to my second thing to watch. If you're counting, that's technically the 4th thing we've told you to watch on our top 3 things to watch, because that is how we roll on this elite channel. I'm saying kicker competition. It's kicker competition time. Let me just say that Tabor Pepper tweeted out a shot of him eating burritos with Jake Moody. There's evidence of snapper kicker collaboration going on. I immediately had to retweet it and let him know, hey, there's going to be kicker updates on the upcoming show, to which Tabor Pepper liked my tweet, and I'm taking that as a win, Randon. I'm taking my victory lap. That's how small the victories need to be for me to take a lap, Brandon. I got a like from Tabor Pepper on Twitter, and we're doing a victory lap.
Hey, better stretch before that lap because it's going to be a long one. That's nice. I like it.
Stretch before that lap. I need to stretch before everything at my age, Randon. I pull muscles for next to no reason at all. So the only thing to watch here is how badly would Zane Gonzalez have to outperform Jake Moody for the 49ers to say, we spent a 3rd round pick on a kicker and it was a mistake. I don't think that happens. It looks like Jake Moody, barring a tragic unraveling, will be the kicker that makes it. But another question to watch is will Zane Gonzalez sign to the 49ers practice squad? Does he want to go back into free agency? He seems to be, if healthy, one of the better free agent kickers available. But that health question mark is a very big one for him. And then we're going to touch on this later, but I will say that an update to the kicker competition is I'm a little disappointed at the temporary 1-year rule put in place for kickers that we will define later. I think it hurts our guy Jake Moody a little bit because of the cannon for a leg that he has. But when I hear about the distance on his kicks, I get excited. It's weird to be excited about a kicker, but the last time the 49ers drafted a kicker, they freaking won the Super Bowl in 94, right? They drafted a kicker in the 3rd round and won the Super Bowl. So let's just make that happen again.
Yeah, they're going for a Cosmos thing. It has nothing to do with Moody. They're just trying to appease the Cosmos gods.
Exactly.
Yeah, what competition? There's no competition. Again, third round draft capital is good. Like Moody would have to break his foot kicking the ball so hard that Zane Gonzalez is the only other option. Like that is the competition that we're talking about. I think this kind of lends it to, I got an itch right here. I think it lends it to, I don't know if you saw this because I meant to send it to you and I keep forgetting to, but it was an article about, or with Jay Feely.
Ooh, Jay Feely is good talking kickers.
Yeah, talking about kickers. And he says why teams miss so much. Like, the stat, only one kicker is re-signed with his team. Is because they don't have a guy dedicated who knows what the F they're talking about, is what he said. He said because teams very rarely scout kickers because the fact that they hardly ever need them. There's only 32 of them. There's really not a need to pick one every single draft. So they don't have a guy dedicated to it. So they just look at BS stats and that's it. And so that's why you get a lot of kickers that don't have what it takes. But then he went on to say why he thinks Moody has the stuff and will be a top kicker in the league for years to come.
Love to hear that.
He said one of the major things kicking is all about failure and how you respond to failure. Knowing that if you miss the last kick of the game, that the entire week at practice, the vibe is going to be different because of you. Right. And how do you respond to that? And so he said, him playing at Michigan and playing with over 100,000 fans at home in a situation where expectations are national championship every single year. And he responded every single time. Positive. 2, he played in one of the hardest places to play as far as weather, with rain, sleet, snow, iced field, less than gorgeous conditions. Dominated that. He has the attitude to be a great kicker. And he said one of the best things about it is that you look at in college, there's a lot of kickers with great stats that don't have great form, right? And he said he has some of the best form he's seen, and repeatable form is what he said. Like, you can be a good kicker, but can you repeat this great form over and over again? And he says he hasn't really seen a flaw in his kicking motion his entire time watching Jake Moody in college. So like all those things line up. Like he thinks he has what it has up here. He has it in the leg. He's kicked in the hardest situations against the biggest opponents, against the biggest crowds, heckling him, has responded against any negative that he's had. One kicker of the year, he should have won it 2 times in a row, but usually they spread those awards out. It was a full essay on why people should want Jake Moody to be their kicker for the next decade.
Yes.
So
I'll take it.
I was not here for the kicker talk. I was 3rd round. That seems quite aggressive. But if Jake Feely put it out and said, hey, if you get take position away from it, if you get a decade-long starter in the 3rd round, that's a successful pick.
That's huge.
So it doesn't really matter what position it is, because then you don't have to worry about that position for the next decade, right?
That's right.
And so you don't have to keep cycling kickers. You don't have to be the Cowboys wondering if Maher is going to miss his 5th extra point in a row. You just trot him out there. You go as a fan. You go take a piss, go grab another beer because that's going through the upright, and you come back and watch some football.
Amen to be able to take a leak when the kicker comes up. Ian Sharp saying, hey, kickers are people too. Agreed. Armchair quarterback 1. How's this tackling? Well, I'll just say he's no Mitch Wishnowski and leave it there. Yes, it is no competition. It is a lock, and it will be fun to get updates. Let's go to your third thing to watch, good sir.
Yeah, my third thing to watch is the linebacker room, and I think this is way more open than people think. So they didn't go as high as a third round pick, but they invested 2 picks, just like they did in the tight end room, into the linebacking room. I know, granted, one Graham was like 5 picks away from being Mr. Irrelevant, so
Right.
not a lot of draft capital there. But D Winters had quite a bit of draft capital, and he reminds me. And from after hearing his scouting profile, I did actually watch a little bit of tape on him this season because I am in Texas, so
Nice.
tape actual games. And so he has the same type of profile as one Dre Greenlaw or one Quan Alexander. Really good downhill tackler, finds a hole and is able to explode through it. Has a really good 40, really good 10-yard split. He had 7.5 sacks as a middle linebacker in college. So he's good at timing his blitzes and everything like that. He's a little weak in coverage because he wasn't really asked to do much of that in college. So whether that's weakness or he just wasn't shown on tape is something to watch out for in camp. So that's one thing I'm looking out for. And then where does this shape up? Like, where are the reps being given? Because Dre Greenlaw, I believe this is his last year of his contract. You can't pay 2 linebackers extreme amounts of money. Warner's contract's only going to get more. You got to pick Nick Bosa,
I think the extension for Greenlaw takes him beyond this year. I'll look up where his contract is right now, but it's not too long. It was just an extension.
So, is this profiling D Winters to take over for Greenlaw and keep the linebacker room, light in the dollar bill department? So that's what I'm looking out for, because I don't think any of the other guys, like we said, or like I said in the draft show, have pronounced themselves as the heir apparent, right? You knew Aziz was the third guy, right? You don't have an heir apparent there. Is it McCrary Ball? Is it Oren Burks? They pretty much brought him in just for special teams. Is the downgrade to what special teams will mean based on the new rules that we're going to be talking about later? Is that going to affect that guys don't have to be as good on special teams, and you need more guys that can maybe blitz or be good in coverage rather than a special teamer? It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And I think that you need to find an heir apparent for Dre Greenlaw. And is that going to be D Winters? Do you need to go back to the linebacker well next year in the draft and try to find another guy because you didn't hit on that pick? So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff, and they kept 5 out of camp, if I remember correctly, last year.
Yeah, that's my biggest question. Is it going to be 5 or 6 this year?
And you have Greenlaw and Warner are locks.
So is Oren Burks, if you look at him.
Burks because of contract.
Yeah, and the special teams value.
D Winters, I would say, because of his 5th round pick is pretty good. It was a 6th, right?
6th.
6th. But I think he's probably a lock. And then you're going to have McCrary Ball, Flanagan Fowles, Robinson, Graham, are all fighting for one spot, or are they gonna keep another one? Now, I mean, we keep bringing up all these different rules, but the third quarterback rule that we're gonna be the third quarterback has to be on the 53, but doesn't go against the amount of players you can dress on Sunday. So that gives, considering the Niners were probably going to dress 3 anyways, just out of fright of the last couple seasons, that gives the Niners an extra roster spot that they probably weren't expecting. So does that go to a linebacker on game day? Does that go to another linebacker? Does that give that person an edge? I think there's only 1 spot available, and there's 4 guys going for that last spot. So I wonder how that's going to shake out.
I could absolutely see a situation where the Niners keep 6 linebackers this season just because of that backlog. I mean, this was another one that had to be talked about, the linebacker room. I'm in lockstep with you. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, obviously locks. Looked up the contract. The extension to Greenlaw gave him 2 additional years. So this season and next. But next season, his salary bumps up to right under $10 million. With dead cap money, I don't know whether the Niners would do any sort of a move, but when you look at the salaries for Greenlaw and Fred Warner next season in 2024, it does make you wonder if they will need to make a change. Following the money further on down the line, so if we've got Warner and Greenlaw as locks, Oren Burks as a lock because of his special teams value, because of where he is in the contract, I agree that Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles seems like a likely lock to make it. He also, when you follow the money, again, at 49ers Cap on Twitter, phenomenal. Jason Hurley putting out the figures for us.
But there's a sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. For Greenlaw, right. There's 0 dead cap after the season. So they could cut him for nothing.
That would be,
instead of paying him 8 mil or 10 mil.
That would be big. That would be big. It's an interesting one. And so you're looking at, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, $1.25 million of his $1.825 million is guaranteed. So like 66% of his salary is guaranteed, and he has contributed on the team. So I think that's a safe bet. And that's why I truly believe they will have to keep 6, because I think D. Winters and Jalen Graham will do enough to show that they belong. And McCrary Ball obviously did enough to earn himself a futures contract, to earn back here, to earn his spot here in this postseason, this preseason, to try and earn a roster spot for the regular season. Curtis Robinson would seem to be on the outside looking in to me. That's going to be a fascinating one to watch. There is no doubt about it. I
don't think Graham's a guarantee to make the spot either. Like I said, he's barely a 7th round pick. They cut a 6th round corner last year, so
draft capital. I agree. From what I'm hearing, he's been showing out already. And I just like Scott McLuhan's appraisal of Jalen Graham. I'm picking him as a dark horse candidate to make the 53 as that low end 7th round pick.
I just think that for me, like his skill set screams Fred Warner. Like he's not Fred Warner. Let me rephrase that. His position that he's best able to play is what Fred Warner is playing. Yeah. So he is not Fred Warner. So let's back that up. I'm just saying, like, the position he's best at is what Fred Warner is already playing. So there's not a spot there for him. Right. And so he didn't play a lot of special teams. D. Winters played punt team, punt return team, and I think kickoff team, even as a senior, as a captain on TCU. So I think he's a lock because he can play special teams. He's already played special teams. So Flanagan-Fowles because of his contract. So, and then McCrary Balls looked like they've want him on the roster. I mean, I don't think that it would surprise me if Graham made the practice squad or was sent to the practice squad because of that.
It wouldn't surprise you if he ended up on the practice squad.
No. 7th round picks get cut all the time.
I wouldn't put it as a surprise for me either, if I'm honest. It is my dark horse candidate, like a way too early prediction to say that he is making it to the 53. All right, Kevin talking about that. End of July last year, we had to cut from 80 to 53 and slip some to the practice squad. Think we're going to lose some long-term talent because this is an all-in year with pending huge backdated restructures. That is interesting. You certainly have to look at, hey, is your window now or is your window in the future as to whether you keep some of those promising guys that 2-3 years from now could be studs versus the more veteran player or the more established player who doesn't have much room to grow, but his floor is higher at the moment. You could see, we will see quality players cut by the Niners, swooped up by other teams. That's absolutely what happens when you have one of the most stacked rosters in the league.
And it will continue to happen if they find their quarterback of the future. The Patriots do it all the time. The Chiefs did it last year. Like when you have an elite quarterback, you're in the playoffs every year. So you can get rid of other talent, right? I mean, and still compete. And so right now the Niners don't know who their quarterback is, and so they're talented everywhere else. But you can't continue paying everybody. I fully expect Dre Greenlaw to get cut after this season. Like there's 0 dead cap. You're not going to pay another linebacker $10 million. You're going to need that money elsewhere. And so
you're probably looking at like a trade in that instance, but I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Looking at Leo R coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel, says family game night is over. Time for Papa Niner beard time. What did I miss? You have missed the first 5 of our top 3 things to watch, but you're just in time for number 6 of our top 3 things to watch. Again, that is because we each get 3. See how that works out. Mine is going to be the starting safety position. Definitely looking at Ji'Ayir Brown. So does Ji'Ayir Brown earn a starting role here? That's the big question mark for me. He is a clear favorite for so many of the coaches, so many of the talent evaluators. Everyone was super excited to get him in the building. He's definitely the future at the position. The Niners seem to have drafted him 1 year early. You got Tayshaun Gibson, perfect scenario, much like last year. The year prior, where Jaquiski Tart was in front of Talanoa Hufanga, set up perfectly. You brought in Talanoa Hufanga on specific plays. He contributed as a rookie, but then his second year took over that safety spot. Seems custom tailor set up to be the same scenario, but you could see something where Brown flashes and you're tempted to name him at the starter. And let me tell you why I wouldn't go that direction. Because I think in that question, in that scenario, Tayshaun Gibson maybe doesn't stay on the team. He considered retirement this offseason. And so if he's not going to be the starter, does he want to be a backup player? And if that's the case, then I'd rather go into the year with Tayshaun Gibson as number one. He's a locker room favorite. He's well respected there. You start with him unless he is absolutely outclassed in preseason. And I don't anticipate that being the case. Tayshaun Gibson finds himself in the right spot at the right time quite frequently. And again, it sets up perfectly to have him here for the one bridge year on to the rookie. If during the season you're seeing progress from the rookie, then I think you can turn the reins over. Tayshaun Gibson can step back and not consider that retirement move. But I think if you make the move in preseason, he's got to reevaluate whether he wants to go into his final season as an NFL player as the second string safety on the team.
I also think there's it's hard to go back. Like if you name the young kid a starter week one, like he's got to play through the bumps and bruises. Like he can't be afraid that if he makes a mistake that he's going to get pulled, because that's just a mental, mind fuck, for lack of a better term. Like It's just, hey, I make a mistake or I make the wrong read and they're going to pull me for Gibson. Like, I think that's just tough for any kid to have to play under that amount of scrutiny. I mean, it is the NFL, it is the San Francisco 49ers, but like, I think Gibson gives him a chance to have a breather, right? The Niners are going to blow out some teams this season and he'll get his chance to play in some games. So like, I think it's going to be able to do that. And if Gibson is too old, if he's past his prime and, Father Time finally caught up with him or whatever, and you have to go to the rook, like I wouldn't be upset about that. I mean, they're both, ball hawks in college. They both have the same kind of a hunter mentality. I think it's great. I mean, I don't think it's a competition yet, but I want the rookie to push Gibson to where it's a tough decision for Wilkes and Shanahan come week one.
Yes.
Because that would be inspiring for me.
Yes, it would be. That would be phenomenal. Much like the quarterback room, right? You want to have that close call. You want to have that competition. All right, we have gone through our 6 things to watch, through our top 6 things to watch. And we are getting on to a quick question here. But first, there's critique in the chat, and I must bring it up. MK Dub is taking a shot. He says, your political correctness is your biggest downfall. To that, MK Dub, I say, what fucking political correctness? I am kind. That may be what you're referring to. I don't like to insult people. And I am not afraid to take a position. If you would like to be more specific with your critique, MK Dub, I will happily speak to it. Leo R, coming in with the super chat before our next topic here, says, we were a play away from the Super Bowl win with Jimmy. I don't believe we need a Lamar, Brady, Rodgers for a number 6, but we do need a solid O-line to keep our running game beasting and reduce quarterback injuries. OTA latest regarding right tackle. There doesn't seem to be much of a competition at right tackle. It is seemingly Colton McKivitz's job to lose there. And I would say that given the 49ers track record, what they've been able to do along the patchwork offensive line in season, the move to Banks and Burford last offseason, the move to McKivitz without seeming concern by the organization this offseason, I feel pretty good. 80% of the offensive line is returning from one of the more dominant units in the league. You are only looking at that one spot where you have the question mark on McKivitz, and you have a couple of live games wherein he performed at least adequately. So I think you're right about this, Leo, that you can win with lesser quarterback play when you have the rest of the roster that the 49ers do. when you base a lot of your offense around the run game, agreed that the O-line must be efficient in that. That would be the more concerning of the two areas for McKivitz, is his ability in the run game versus him being a slightly better pass protector than Mike McGlinchey. But I understand it's a question mark. For me, it's one that feels not that big of a deal. Like I honestly have faith that the Niners O-line will look good. How are you feeling about the O-line heading into the preseason, Brandon?
The O-line, I feel fine. The right tackle, I'm not sold on McKivitz in any form or aspect. So the offensive line as a whole, when you have 80% returning, you feel good about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, most offensive line have holes, right? I mean, so if that's our hole on the tackle, on the right tackle position, and the rest of the offensive line plays good, you got to feel decent about that. I just think it's easier to target a tackle when they're the worst player. I mean, but I guess you can also move CMC over to help, block, put a tight end over there, do some stuff like that. As far as the quarterback thing, couldn't be 100% in disagreement with Leo here. Outliers are outliers for a reason. They're not used in data. They're not used in most data sets because they are outliers. Winning a Super Bowl with Nick Foles or winning a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco does not mean that it's a way to build a team, or it's how you want to build a franchise, because everything has to go right to win. If you look at over the last 15 years, okay, I think it was in 2000. I think the stat was from 2020, but over the last 15 years before that, the AFC Championship quarterback was either Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, or Peyton Manning for 15 straight years. It was three guys. So and you're looking at as much as people want to give him crap, Aaron Rodgers made the playoffs almost every single year that he was there, if not every single year. Patrick Mahomes hasn't missed the playoffs since he's been the quarterback there in Kansas City. So, and has 2 Super Bowls. Like, elite quarterback play can make up for so many more things on the roster, but then an elite defense and a run game can't always make up for a bad quarterback play. So I think, can they win? Sure. They can. I mean, they were close in 19. They had the team to win it last year with Brock Purdy. I 100% believe that they could have won with Brock Purdy because the way the offense was humming. But this league is a quarterback league. The rules for hitting quarterbacks and what they want to see from offenses say that. The amount of money that those players get paid say that. Outside of a few players over the last 20, 25 years, all the rest of the quarterbacks you could say were elite at one point in their career. And that's just fact.
Yeah. It's hard to argue against the idea that an elite quarterback is going to do more for you on an NFL team. That idea that they can carry a team. There are limited resources available for elite quarterbacks. So when you don't have one, it's a good plan to build up an elite defense, an elite roster in totality, have a dominant run game. But it is simpler, if not harder, to just go out and get yourself one of these amazing superstar quarterbacks. Problem being, there just aren't enough of them. Hopefully the Niners already have one, maybe two on their roster. Saying what's up to Jonathan Lamont, coming in to just say what's up, Jonathan. Appreciate you coming in. Let's close this thing out with a couple of quick hitting topics, Randon. Let's talk about the third round running back. Do you believe this is a simple one here? We have some competition, 2 undrafted running backs trying to attempt to earn a spot on the running back depth chart. Here's the premise. I'm saying that McCaffrey, shocker, is a lock. Elijah Mitchell is a lock. And I'm taking Mason as a lock. So you got to agree with me on those 3. That's the hypothetical. There's a 4th running back that I think the Niners are going to keep. Maybe they don't, but most years the Niners roll with 4, and they've needed them every year. You got Ronald Awatt, Kalen LeBourne as the 2 undrafted running backs. Do we see another third-round running back cut this offseason? Does TDP get cut?
No, not a chance.
He makes it. I don't think he does either.
I would say maybe 0.5%. But you're looking at the success story. I say this every single year. Everybody loves their undrafted guys. Everybody loves their late guys that show out in these OTAs. But how many of those made the roster last season? Jordan Mason made the roster, and that was it.
Right.
And so, like all these other undrafted guys, I don't think there was another undrafted guy. If I'm wrong, you can call me out on that. But I don't think there was another undrafted guy that made the team last year, right out of camp. So, like to have two guys and for them to throw away another third round draft capital, I just think would be dumb. Especially with Eli Mitchell missing pretty much the majority of the last 2 seasons, Christian McCaffrey's injury history. Like, I think Ty Davis Price is probably the third on the depth chart. If I'm being honest with you, I think he'll get another chance out of camp to prove himself and come in. Last year was last year. Maybe his rookie season was too much for him. Maybe he comes back this season bulked out, ready to go, and Jordan Mason doesn't. Maybe Jordan Mason doesn't take the offseason. So I don't think outside of CMC and probably Elijah Mitchell, Shanahan ain't going to take any favorites. It's going to be about doing your job right, hitting your blocks, hitting your holes correctly. So I'm just saying, like, Ty Davis Price was drafted in the 3rd round for a reason for them. I wouldn't have drafted them there, but they believed he was worth that pick. And so I think that they're going to hold it up. Trey Sermon was baffling to me about why he got cut and what's going on. Maybe he was they thought he could make him fit their scheme. Maybe they just missed him as the person he is. Maybe he wasn't the person they thought he was, and he didn't take his job seriously enough. I don't know. He didn't get any run in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia didn't have Christian McCaffrey. They had Miles Sanders. I guess he had I think he had 1,400 yards, so he had a great season. But he didn't really get any run there, So I just think that, and realistically, not all of these people are going to be hits.
No,
I mean, the hit rate for 1st round picks is less than 50%. So we're talking about 3rd round picks, 4th round picks, 5th round picks, undrafted guys going downhill from there. So maybe Sermon was just a miss, but I just have a hard time believing they're just going to go, hey, these 2 undrafted guys showed out in camp and we're going to cut a 3rd round pick again.
And it would have to be one or the other, because I don't think we're keeping 5 back. So it would be Ronald or Kalon coming in and beating him out. I think you're right that the Niners just in 2 sequential years are not going to eat crow of saying, yeah, you know what, we missed on another 3rd round running back. He's buried on the depth chart. The competition is 2 undrafted players that you probably could stash on the practice squad. I agree. I think TDP does, in fact, make it. But Stottle brings up a great point here, saying, I'm guessing whichever running back gets cut is picked up by another team within a week. That's a fact. Both of those undrafted guys will get some looks from other teams there. All right, let's get into
how many other teams took their undrafted guys? Because my thought process is this, and this is a point that I think a lot of people don't really think about. When you're drafted by a team, you have no choice.
Correct.
Right? Like, you have no choice on where you're going.
Unless you're Phillip Rivers or someone that throws a hissy fit.
Yeah. So, do you think
Eli Manning, I should say.
Do you think Graham in our last pick, if he was choosing where to go, would choose the linebacking room for the San Francisco 49ers? Probably not.
That's a crowded room.
He probably would choose the Texans or a team that has a very good roster spot. Our team in 2017 was straight trash. So there was roster spots aplenty for these undrafted free agents. Now, they get to choose where they want to go. They get it because this is probably their only chance.
Right.
Because there's more undrafted guys next year on making a roster or making a practice squad, which is their number one goal as an undrafted free agent. So why pick a room that you're not going to be able to make it in just because you want to? So my thought process is this: the better undrafted guys are probably going to rooms where they feel like they have almost a guaranteed shot or a higher percentage shot at making that roster. Because
I
right
like
now,
that argument.
There's one spot available, in my opinion, for the Niners.
But what I will say is they may also understand that coming into the 49ers gives them the best chance to showcase their talents for all the other teams in the league that they might want to actually be on the practice squad or the roster for. Coming in to be with the Niners for the preseason.
On the sideline holding their chest pads? They're not going to get any plays.
When they get into the game in preseason, they'll show out like Corey Sheets did back in the day. You'll have all sorts of Niner fans calling for them to make the roster. but it will be that opportunity for other teams to see. I mean, you watched it with, Matt Breida, with who was our pass catching running back that ended up with Miami. Our running backs get poached fairly frequently.
But that's after regular season play. That's not preseason. That's not camp.
Totally true with Matt Breida. That is regular season play.
I'm just saying, like, if you look at all these undrafted guys, this scouting team for all these teams just spent the last 6 months looking at these folks. And they said, no, we're not going to pick this dude. So you're telling me that like a couple preseason games is like 10 runs is going to be enough for a team to be like, yeah, we fucked up. That's our guy. Like, no, I am
very confident that one of our two, if they don't make our roster, one of our two undrafted free agent running backs will absolutely get swooped up by another team in the NFL.
On a 53-man. You're saying 53-man.
I believe a 53-man.
I'll take that bet right now.
Let's do it. Let's throw a beverage at our next game that we attend, alcoholic or not. For you, it could be an alcoholic beverage. For me, it might be a soda. But we will throw that on the line.
Yes. Gentlemen's agreement.
Gentlemen's wager. All right, let's get on to our next quick hitting topic, the emergency quarterback rule. This one is a quick update. It applies to quarterbacks who are on the 53-man roster. Practice squad players are not eligible to be emergency quarterbacks, not even if they're elevated for that week's game. That's a critical component to this. So you can't stash your quarterback on the practice squad and then elevate him and use him as your emergency guys. But it does allow the team to avoid counting the emergency quarterback as one of the active players on game day. So this rule would not have benefited the 49ers as far as the NFC Championship game. Jimmy was supposedly not healthy at that point. He couldn't go. And so he wouldn't have been able to miraculously be healed from that. It has to be as a result of injury to the first two quarterbacks. You can't bench the first two and then go to your emergency quarterback. So this feels like a fix.
It would have benefited them that they wouldn't have had Purdy thrown with a torn UCL. They would have had some scrub in the game, but at least
they would have had a third quarterback as that emergency. But they would have needed to have that on the 53-man roster, and they didn't, right? So the only third quarterback they had on the 53-man was Jimmy, and he wasn't healthy to go. So in that exact scenario, it wouldn't help them. The reality of that exact scenario playing out again is slim and none, and Slim just left town. So this does protect most teams to carry a third quarterback on the 53-man and not have to suit them up for games. So to me, this is a positive rule change.
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFC Championship game was the worst football I've seen in a long time.
Agreed.
And nobody wants to see that. So, it's just something to where you don't want to see that right away. And nobody wants to come in and watch this team throw a guy that has a torn UCL or run the Wildcat or do any of those things when you have people that can come in and actually throw the football. So like to me, it doesn't make any sense why this rule was taken away. I knew they used to do it in the olden days. I know it doesn't happen very often, but like it was a good thing. Not good thing because that made us lose, but it allowed for a rule change because it was in the prime of the football. Everybody saw it, and everybody saw how bad that was. Like I was at a bar and I was ready to leave at halftime. Like I was like, okay, there's no chance that we have to win back in this game. Once
I was in the stadium and I was ready to leave. But I stuck that out because that's how I roll at games. I was there till the last insult was hurled at my face and at my back.
So, I think that, I think that it's something along those lines of going that. And so I think it's great. Also to respond to everybody with Mozart and all these guys, they all played regular season games before they went to another team. Hasty played a regular season games. I'm talking about rookie undrafted players showing out just in preseason don't often get poached because everybody else has rookie undrafted guys.
Yeah, they don't. They often make the practice squad. This was a bold wager on my part that I'm likely to lose. And I'm willing to admit that ahead of the conclusion of said waiver. All right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that running backs don't get second jobs after they've been on the Niners because they absolutely do. They
absolutely do.
I'm just saying rookie undrafted guys.
Yes.
There's not a lot of like roster switching in the NFL. Like occasionally guys get picked up.
Not since the
really
pandemic.
Yeah.
The practice squads have been like a minor league. It's almost as if a collusion occurred and NFL teams were like, all right, we won't poach your practice squads all that much. It feels a little bit like that. It's not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it feels a little bit like that. Yeah. The Thursday night flex rule. This is a chance for me to vent. As a fan who attends games, this is fucking bullshit. So Roger Goodell pushed this. NFL owners voted 24-8, allowing flex scheduling during the final 5 Thursday night games of the regular season, weeks 13 through 17. If one more owner had voted against this shit, the proposal would not have passed. So it means if you bought tickets for a Sunday game, planned a fucking trip around it, booked a flight, booked a hotel, you're there for Sunday, so you're certainly not arriving on Thursday. Your game may be moved to Thursday with just 4 weeks notice. I don't know about you, but I don't buy the guarantee my trip BS insurance, because when I book, I know I'm going. This messes that all up. 4 weeks in advance, you may need to change your flight. You may need to change your hotel reservations. Now, I know that the owners are saying that, or Goodell said something around like it would need to be an emergency situation, meaning it would need to be a really atrocious game that they're swapping out. But what are they going to define as an emergency? To me, that's just unacceptable. I get switching the times. To switch from a Sunday day game to a Sunday night game, is it inconvenient? Yes. Can you work around that? Most likely. It's not going to impact as many fans. This one, to me, switching to Thursday is just bullshit.
I mean, I think it's so funny how the league is like, oh, yeah, we're about player safety. So they're like, oh, we'll give you a little bit of player safety. We'll get you the 3 quarterback ones, but we're going to get something in return. So here, how's a limited Thursday night games? How many, there's no cap. So any team can play, it's just complete BS. So the Niners, I don't know if you saw, some fan put out this stat, the Niners have the least amount of rest days compared to their opponents out of any team in the NFL. So now you're telling me that they can just flex some team to a team that already is lacking rest days compared to their opponents and to say, hey, the Niners are a good draw. Let's put them on Thursday night or whoever. This ain't going to be a team. This is going to be a team with already a lot of primetime games. They're just going to get more primetime games.
Right.
Now I do not know, because I didn't read the fine print, if a team can go above the amount of, I think it's 5 primetime games in a year. So will they have to flex, maybe not the matchup that they would have wanted, but like a B matchup or C matchup. So it's like a team, hey, this team only has 4 primetime games. They're a wild card team. Let's throw them in there. So are the Niners not really at risk because they are already at the max primetime games as possible? I didn't read the fine print there. My guess is no, because the NFL doesn't seem to care. So
they just want the cheddar, man. They are all about the cheddar, and this is all about streaming deals.
Lions fans? Could you imagine Lions? They already have 3 Thursday night games. Could you imagine a 4th?
It's crazy.
Week 17, if they're in the playoffs and they're I don't know their schedule. What if they're playing the Packers week 17? Are they going to play? They going to not flex that game on primetime? Now they're going to have 4 Thursday night games. That is just nuts.
Yeah, the NFL sees the streaming trend happening. They know that that's where the future of football is headed as well. And they're looking ahead. The current deals starting this year, 11 years, $110 billion is what the NFL is making from all of their TV partners over the next 11 years. $110 billion. And they're just looking ahead and saying, hey, streaming is the way to go. Thursday is part of that. We need to make the Thursday product as palatable as possible. I'm with Ian here. At some point, they've got to realize, dump it, kill it. Leo coming in, kill Thursday night football, add more games to the regular season, add a second bye week, all of that. That's too much for me to process. But the Thursday night football, I'm with you. Kill it. All right. There's a new kickoff.
I heard a pretty cool theory, or a good theory.
Yeah.
That it was the NFL wants to slowly get to 18 games. They want to slowly get to 2 buys. And they're unveiling their plan 1 year at a time. So they're how's 17 games? Does that get voted in? Yes. Okay, how's Thursday Night Flex? Does that get voted in? Awesome. How about 18 games? Is that going to get voted in? Sure. Finally, we'll give you 2 bye weeks because, in order to get 18 games, we'll give you 2 bye weeks. Okay, great. How about we add another playoff team? So now we have 2 more expansion teams will have another wild card. So 16 teams get in. That means 1 extra week of football. We're going to be playing into April. Like it's just going to be ridiculous. Like, I'm all for more football.
I'm here for more football.
But this is a pure money grab. I don't care what the fan base has to say. Pure money grab. Side note, did you see the Kelsey's interview with Roger Goodell?
No.
He goes, I think it was something along the lines, if you're putting more games on the schedule or more Thursday nights, you need to give a rule to the football players that we enjoy. I want 1 hockey style fight per game.
Yeah.
That would
be amazing.
Travis like, I just want 1 hockey style football fight per game, and that's it. And otherwise, it's an unsportsmanlike conduct and it's a flag. But could you imagine guys just taking off their helmets and just going to town on each other?
I want to see Kelsey on Kelsey, right? That could be
that's what he said.
He's like, brother.
He goes, first fight's going to be Kelsey on Kelsey crime.
Has to be. That's phenomenal. We'll hit it quick, but there's a new kickoff rule that essentially is trying to reduce contact on kickoffs to reduce injuries. Back to Randon's point of, hey, we're trying to reduce injuries. If it is fair caught in between the 1 yard line and the 25, fair caught, then that means it advances to the 25. So it eliminates that temptation to try and kick a very high kickoff that lands at the 10-yard line and have your coverage unit swamp it. So it does sort of fly against something that we probably would have been able to do with a leg like Moody. But again, just further rule changes to reduce concussions on kickoffs. And I got to say, I don't have a passionate feel one way or the other on this one.
I think it's getting rid of the importance of some of these players. Like, how a lot of these fringe guys make it is playing special teams. And like, this is getting rid of that. Like, it's like, okay, you have a wide receiver or a corner that's a good return guy. Like, that's his key to making a roster.
Yeah.
And like, I think the XFL has their special teams down. Like, I think you're looking at, like, they have it to where there's no running in advance. They can't run until the guys caught the football, and they only line the guys up like 10 feet apart from each other.
That seems prudent.
To where it eliminates all the super heavy contact.
Right.
And then for like the onside kick, like, if you're going to get the onside kick is irrelevant now that they can't run ahead of the time. So give me the 4th and 15.
Absolutely.
Give me the 4th.
Give it to me.
What, like, the XFL or the NFL is not utilizing these other leagues. These other leagues are test leagues for stupid rules that may or may never make it to the NFL. But some of the XFL rules are pretty cool, and they should have that. Like, I think that it would be. Could you imagine that? Because you can only attempt the 4th and 15 in the 4th quarter.
It'd be phenomenal.
Could you imagine the 4th quarter? You make this big 70-yard dash, and you're like, okay, we got 30 seconds left, and then you get a 4th and 15 chance at getting the ball right back. You complete the 4th and 15, you're on the 50. No, you're on the 40-yard line.
Hail Mary time.
Right there. You're right there.
Yeah.
And
it changes it.
I just think it's great. I think it's so awesome that they do that kind of stuff. And like, the league should be looking at that. You look at baseball. No, don't get me started on their rule changes, but they do utilize like single A and other little small leagues.
We lost Randon for a second. I'll summarize it, though. I totally agree that I think the NFL does look at those rule changes. I think they're super slow to act. So I would see a delay of any of those implementations of the NFL watching it for 3 or 4 years before we start to see some of those rule changes trickle in. But they have to be influenced by it, because we as the fan will be influenced by it. And I think that will drive the change.
I agree.
Let's close this thing out. There was a wager that Joe E., who is not in the chat this evening, but may watch this later on, so we'll put this out there. He reached out with a wager. He was talking about Niners are going 10-7 at best, and wanted to put a jersey on the line. Reached out to me via email and said this: "What's up, Rob? I'm down to put an NFL Shop Niners jersey on the line for the season. I'm bracing for 10-7. We get into the playoffs as a lower seed. Here's the combo on why." He gave his logic. We always start slow. No clear-cut quarterback one. If they start Darnold, there are going to be a ton of turnovers. Number 3, we always have weird star players injuries at terrible times. Number 4, travel schedule. Number 5, always a crap the bed game or 2. That's fair. Number 6, we have a trend of struggling with mobile quarterbacks. All of those combining for a prediction of 10-7. When I gave my prediction, I gave 12-5. So we have a little bit of a gap there. So I am accepting the wager. I freaking love it, Joe E. Here's my proposal. You're at 10-7. I'm at 12-5. I accept your terms of an NFL shop jersey as the wager. I'm just trusting that you would pay up. I'm obviously here online. If I lose, it's going to be tough for me not to pay up. I'm trusting that you would pay up if you lost. I'm willing to take that risk. But there is an 11-6 push that is set up by this. So 10-7 or worse, you win. 12-5 or better, I win. 11-6 is a push, but I'm going to set that as I'll still buy the jersey and give it away on the channel. So 11-6 is a push, but that means the channel wins and somebody gets a jersey in a raffle giveaway. You just got to answer that you want to do the bet and what level of jersey we prefer to lay on the line. Are we talking the most expensive NFL shop or are we talking the base level Nike? So Joe E., the wager is out there. Randon, I feel pretty good about this one. It's basically taking the over and getting 1-to-1 odds. It feels good.
Easy money.
Easy money. Look at that. JMO49 asking the timely question. What's your prediction on this year's record they're going to be in? I am at 12-5. 12-5 on the record. Randon, phenomenal show, sir. Always appreciate you being on. Always appreciate you taking the time. Your information is down below. People should go follow you on Twitter. Go look up Hockey Royalty for the podcast on YouTube. All of those links are down there. Do you have a Hockey Royalty podcast coming up, good sir?
Yeah, we have one tomorrow. So
Nice.
We did 2 weeks ago. We did the forwards. We're doing the defensive and goalies. And then it's off season and starting to look at the draft. I'll have some draft guests on. So all you Sharks fans who got a top 5 pick, listen to that. You can kind of listen to some guys. I think they'll probably either go Leo Carlson or Michkov. Michkov is the risky one. He's from Russia. He's signed a pro deal in Russia for the next couple of years, making millions of dollars. It's hard to get those Russians over when they make a lot of money. But the kid's freaking legit. So that's kind of where I think they go there. So show in and learn some hockey prospects. It won't be all King-centric when we're talking about the draft. So you can kind of peek in and see what we're about.
I love it. Armchair quarterbacks say Rocky Horror. Yeah, that's where my brain went with the stumbling on words. Leo R. couldn't agree more. It was a nice show. Looking forward to it. Jonathan wants the 11-6 jersey giveaway. I think everyone on the channel is now rooting for the Niners to go 11-6 so that we have the jersey giveaway. Always appreciate everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week. I will be attempting to get in multiple shows during the week, so keep your eyes out. The way to be peeled for that is follow me on Twitter or hit the bell notification on this one so that you know when we go live. Until the next time, cheers, faithful.